If you've been sitting on the fence about buying a home and you're trying to figure out if it still makes sense with rates where they are right now in 2026, this video is going to give you a real answer. It's not going to be a sales pitch or a pep talk. It's just actual numbers on two really similar homes that are actually listed for rent and for sale here in Valrico, Florida. I'm going to walk you through what it costs to buy and what it costs to rent the same type of home in the same neighborhood. And then I'm going to show you what the math looks like in 8 years when it's time to sell. By the end of this video, you're going to have everything you need to make an informed decision for yourself and for your family. My name's Josh High with Swift Home Mortgage here in Brandon, Florida, and I do this literally every single day. And I want to give you the most honest comparison that I can put together for you, including the parts that don't necessarily favor buying because your situation deserves the full picture. Let's get into it. Before we get into the numbers, I wanted to lay out the two homes that we're working with and the assumptions that I'm using so you know exactly what this comparison is built on. The purchase is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage home in Valrico, listed at $399,999, so $400,000. The rental comparison happens to be a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. It's about a mile away, right around the corner, and it's renting for $26.95 per month, so call it $2,700. Same general neighborhood, similar square footage, similar setup. It's as close as I could get to apples and apples with the listings that were available on the day that I pulled this. Here are the assumptions that I'm running with. We're using an 8-year time horizon, which is the average length of time in Florida that homeowners stay before they sell or refinance. I'm using 3.8% inflation. That's the historical average going all the way back to 1960, not the inflated numbers we've seen from a couple years ago. For the investment return calculation, which I'll explain in a minute, I'm using a 6% average return based on an S&P index fund historical performance. And I'm assuming a 22% marginal tax rate for the tax savings calculation. Now, I did my best to keep every number in this comparison conservative. I'm not trying to make buying look better than it is, and I'm also not trying to undersell it. People's finances are all different, and no single example covers everyone. But these numbers are real, and they're current as of today, here in April 2026. One more thing before we dive in. Your actual results are going to vary based on how long you stay in your house, your tax situation, what the market looks like, and a few other factors that I'm going to touch on at the end. Keep that in mind as we move along. Let's start with renting, because that's usually where people's heads are when they're trying to decide what they're going to do. Their rental home in this example is $26.95 per month. That's your number on day one. And honestly, that's not a bad looking number compared to what we're going to see on the buy side in a few minutes. But here's what most people don't think about when they're comparing rent to a mortgage payment. That $26.95 isn't what you're paying in year 4 or 6 or 8 because the rent goes up. Every lease renewal, it's going to creep a little bit higher. And over 8 years, at our 3.8% inflation rate, that same house is going to be running about $3,499, $3,500 a month by year 8. You can see it. Go back in time, 10 years. Were rents cheaper 10 years ago than they are today? Yeah. So as we progress in the future, you can expect that rent payment to go up as well. I've got the full year-by-year breakdown right here so you can see how exactly that progression is going to look over the next few years. When you average out what you're paying across all 8 years, that number comes to $30.97 per month. That's the real cost of renting this house, not $26.95. And now here's something that almost nobody ever factors in, and I think it's really important to be fair about it. If you have to choose to rent instead of buy, you're not spending your own down payment and closing costs. On this purchase, that's about $20,730. That money stays in your pocket. Now, a smart renter puts that money to work. Let's say they drop that into an S&P index fund and leave it alone. At a 6% average annual growth return over 8 years, that $20,000 roughly grows to about $33,000, and that's a gain of over $12,000, which works out to roughly $128 per month in investment income over that period of 8 years. So we're going to give the renter the full credit for that. We subtract the $128 from the $30.97 average, and the true average monthly cost of renting the home here over 8 years comes to $29.69. That's the number we're going to use when we do the final comparison. And I want to be clear, I did everything I could do to make the rental scenario as favorable as possible before we stack up against buying. All right, let's move on to this house that we're going to buy. And I'm going to lead with a number here that's going to make some of you wince because I'd rather you hear it from me within context than you see it just close the video. To get into this house, you're going to need to bring about $23,424 to the closing table. That's your own down payment of $14,000, which is 3.5% on a $399,000 FHA loan. We were using FHA in this scenario, plus your closing costs. And I actually ran a full loan scenario on this exact property as of today, and this is what the fees worksheet looks like right now, so you can see exactly where every dollar is going. This isn't an estimate pulled out of thin air or some round numbers. This is exactly what I would give you today if you came in here to apply for this house, FHA loan with a 700 credit score in Florida right now. Keep that in mind. Once you're in the house, your monthly out-of-pocket looks like this. Your principal and interest payment is $22.92 per month. That's based on the 30-year FHA loan, 5.75 per month interest rate. Property taxes are $500 a month, estimated. I'm using $6,000 annually because once that home reassesses after the purchase, that's a more realistic number for this area and tax bill. Homeowner's insurance is $225 a month, which is a current realistic figure for an inland Valrico home. We're not talking about flood zones, we're not on the water, we're not in huge wind zones over on the coast, so we can be a little bit more conservative with an insurance estimate. Your FHA mortgage insurance is $176 a month. HOA in this house is $13 a month. And we're budgeting about $265 a month for repairs and maintenance, $140 for a roof reserve, $75 for AC reserve, and $50 a month for miscellaneous maintenance on the house. Add all of that up and your total monthly out-of-pocket is $34.71 per month. And I want you to sit on that number for a second because I know that you're thinking the rent on that other house was $26.95 on day one. So right out of the gate, you're spending $776 more per month to own. And that is real. There's no denying it. And I'm not going to gloss over it. But at the out-of-pocket number is not the same thing as the true cost of ownership. And that's exactly what we're getting into next. So we've established that owning this home costs $34.71 per month out of your pocket. Now I want to show you what's actually happening underneath that number because a big chunk of that payment isn't a cost at all. It's working for you. The first one is a principal paydown. So every single month when you make that mortgage payment, a pretty sizable portion of that payment is going to paying down the balance of your loan. It's not going to a landlord and it's not gone. It's building equity in the asset that you own. On this loan over the first 8 years, you're paying down an average of about $515 per month in principal. Now think of it like a forced savings account that you can access when you sell or refinance the property. Over 8 years, that's $49,440 in equity that you've built just by repaying the loan, not by counting any appreciation or any other extra payments towards the loan. The second one is the tax benefit. As a homeowner, you're able to deduct the interest you pay on your mortgage and the property taxes from your taxable income. On this loan, the average monthly interest and property taxes combined comes to about $26.48. At a 22% marginal tax rate, that's $582 a month in tax savings. Now, everyone's tax situation is going to be different, and I'd encourage you to talk to a CPA about your specific picture, but at an average income level, the deduction is real and it's meaningful. The third one is appreciation, and it's the biggest one. Real estate has historically increased in value over time. And I'm not going to use the 15 or 20% appreciation numbers we saw during the pandemic years or other years when things are a little out of control. Those weren't sustainable, and we've already corrected back on a lot of that. We're using 3.8%, which is the same long-run inflation rate we used on the rent side to keep things equal. At 3.8% per year, this $400,000 home grows to a $539,000 home over 8 years. That's $139,320 in gain value, which works out to $1,451 per month averaged across that 8-year period. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. That appreciation isn't real money until you sell. And you're right about that. But when we're comparing the true cost of owning to the true cost of renting over that same period, we have to account for it. A renter walks away after 8 years from the house that they rented with whatever that they've saved. An owner walks away with a check. Those three things, principal paydown, tax savings, and appreciation, are what transforms that $34.71 out-of-pocket number into something very different, and we're going to put it all together in the next section. So here's where it all comes together. I've got everything on screen here, and I want you to walk through it with me, line by line. We start with a total monthly out-of-pocket to own, $34.71. That's your payment. Taxes, insurance, mortgage insurance, HOA, and maintenance reserves all in, all together. Now we add the transaction costs. Buying and selling a home isn't free, unfortunately, so we need to spread those costs over those 8 years to be accurate about it. The closing costs it took to purchase were about $9,400. And when you sell it 8 years later, the estimated value of $539,320, you're looking at roughly $37,000 and change in selling costs. That's about a standard 6% real estate commission plus about 1% in miscellaneous other seller costs. Total transaction costs on both sides, purchase and sell, run about $47,000 and change, which is spread over 96 months or 8 years at $491 per month. That gets added back in. So our fully loaded starting number is $39.62 per month. Now we start subtracting our benefits. So your principal pay down minus $515 a month, tax savings minus $582 a month, appreciation minus $1451 per month, and that takes us to the true monthly cost of owning a home to $1402 per month. Now let's put those numbers side by side. The true monthly cost to rent after giving the renter full credit for investing their down payment savings is $29.69. The true monthly cost to own is $1402. Buying this home is $1,567 a month cheaper than renting over an 8-year period. Over the full 8 years, that's a difference of just over $150,000. And I want to make sure the full picture is clear here. The out-of-pocket to own starts at $776 more per month than the advertised rent. We can't deny that. But once you account for where all that money goes over the years, equity, tax savings, and an asset that continues to grow in value, the true cost flips completely. That's the power of homeownership that you just simply don't have as a renter. Now I want to take a minute to be straight with you about something because I think it's really important, and honestly it makes this whole comparison more credible when I say it. Renting isn't always the wrong answer. There are many situations where it's genuinely the better move. I'd rather you know what those are than to walk away from this video thinking buying is the right call for everyone all the time, no matter what. That's not true. If you're not planning on staying in the home for at least 3 years, the math doesn't work out in your favor. The transaction costs we talk about, nearly $47,000 between buying and selling and commissions and closing costs, they don't have enough time to be offset by the appreciation and the equity pay down that you're giving just for a couple years in that house. In that case, renting gives you more flexibility without all that sunk costs up front. If your credit or your savings aren't where they need to be yet, trying to force a purchase before you're really ready is going to cost you more in the long run. A higher rate because of a lower credit score or draining every single dollar you have to close and leaving you nothing in reserve, those are actual risks and you don't want to be part of that. Sometimes the right move is spending 6 or 12 months getting into a stronger position first. And if your life situation is genuinely uncertain right now, a job change, just graduated, possible relocation, relationship changes, anything that might pull you out of the area like a relocation or a reassignment, flexibility has real value. A lease is a lot easier to exit than a home sale. So if any of these things apply to you, renting still might be the right call right now. It doesn't have to be permanent. A lot of the people I work with rent for a year or two while they get positioned. And then they buy when the timing actually makes sense for their situation. There's no shame in that, and I'd rather tell you that straight up than to push you into something that isn't right for you. So here's where we land. 2 real homes, same general neighborhood, same size. True monthly cost to rent over 8 years is $29.69. The true monthly cost to own is $1402 per month. That's $1,567 per month difference, over $150,000 over 8 years in favor of buying. Real estate's been one of the most consistent wealth building tools in American history. Not because it's glamorous or because prices always go up in a straight line, because they don't, but because over time owning a home forces you to save, and it gives you a tax advantage, and it puts appreciation to work in your favor that renting simply can't do. Now, I said at the beginning that your results may vary, and I really do mean it. Your tax rate, how long you stay, what the market does, whether you actually invest that savings if you rent, all of it moves the numbers. And that's exactly why I'd rather run your specific scenario with you than to have you make a decision based on somebody else's numbers. If you're thinking about buying anywhere in Florida and you want to know what your actual numbers look like, what you actually qualify for and what your payment would be and what you'd need to bring to closing, that's what we do every single day. Give me a call or shoot me a text, 813-606-4255. You can also reach me at josh@swifthm.com. There's no obligation, no pressure. We'll just look at the numbers together and figure out what makes sense for you. I appreciate you watching this whole video update for 2026. If you found it useful, please share it with somebody who's been going back and forth on this decision. It might be exactly what they need to see. I'm Josh High, Swift Home Mortgage, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.